Night fishing can be a ton of fun, a lot of fun, but you need to make sure that you're very careful. First of all, out there, navigating at night can be very dangerous. So first of all, make sure you have all your navigation lights on. You know exactly where you're going. You're not going to a bunch of new water, all that kind of stuff. So let's get that out of the way first, because it can be dangerous. But you can fish ponds, you can fish rivers, you can fish lakes at night, and you can go out there and catch a bunch of fish. And I'm going to give you kind of the basics on lure choice, lure presentation. I don't night fish as much now as I used to, but I used to fish quite a bit at night, and there's a couple things that most people don't understand. Right as it gets dark, you know, that first 30 minutes after it gets dark, the fish, bass, seem to have a hard time adjusting the change of light quickly. So just get that out of the way real quick. There's a lot of times that 30-minute window, roughly, right after it gets dark, that it's just kind of like a real off period. You don't get as many bites, or you might get bumps and they don't eat it as good. I just feel like their eyes are transitioning. So once that's out of the way, I'm going to talk about the different categories of lures. I know a lot of people say, oh, you got to throw a black spinnerbait and a big black worm. Like that's the only thing that they're going to bite. That 100% is not true. I can tell you that right now, because when I did fish a lot of night tournaments, my biggest bait, me and my buddy Rick, we used to fish the tournaments, and our biggest bait was this colored Spro Little John. And since then, they've come out with the black and blue version, to be more of a night version. But I'm telling you, we would throw this. Man, I'm sure this will absolutely smash them as well. But this was our deal. We'd crank points and brush piles, and we'd follow it up with a longer straight worm, just kind of like this, like the tomahawk right here. We would just throw that on a lighter Texas rig. This is probably like an 1/8 ounce. We did no heavier than a quarter, just kind of depending on how we were going to fish it. You can go either with the straight worm or with the ribbon tail like the tomahawk. This is the Quiver 6.5, but you want to have a worm with some size and a little bit of meat to it. You don't want to go too small with like the robo worm type stuff at night for most of the places I've ever done and most of the night fishing I've ever done. You want the worms that have a little bit of bulk to them. And the lighter Texas rig was what we used when we fished the brush. If we are fishing the bank or points to where you're not throwing in brush, I would be real hard pressed not to get involved with a Tokyo rig or a drop shot, something like that. You got a 6, 8, 10, 12 inch leader, and then you got a bigger profiled worm there, and that drop shot and the Tokyo rig help keep that worm up off the bottom, lets those fish find it a little bit better, and that's the worm category. But as I mentioned, the cranking was something that we absolutely loved, and early on in the summertime, I feel like, and especially in ponds, huge in ponds, topwater is a lot of fun, and you can get absolutely smashed. A black jitterbug in a pond at night is kind of like the standard of night fishing. I've caught a ton on that, a lot of fun. But in lakes, and in ponds, you just want to have a topwater bait that has slow, steady action on top. Something that's making some noise or making a disturbance on the water that's slow and steady. A wake bait is an absolutely great way to do it. This is a little Mikey. It's a good one. I think this is a Strike King. Wake bait. The redfin is kind of the standard, or the Thunder Stick. Those two wake baits are awesome at night. You throw them anywhere around the bank. And then I tell you, the Spro Rat, this is the medium size, and it catches a bunch of fish at night, especially the black one. And when you go to the bigger one, all I can tell you is that I've got some friends of mine that absolutely smash them on that big one. So anyway, you may want to take a look at that as well if you're into big fish at night. Just saying. So we're coming back around here to the spinnerbaits. Spinnerbaits are a good option. This is more of your traditional night fishing. Black skirt, single Colorado blade. The deal with that single Colorado blade is it makes a hard thump, a very distinct thump, 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 and that Colorado blade slows the bait down. So the bait's going to be going a little bit slower. It's going to have that more distinct thump. It's going to be easier for those fish to find that bait with their lateral line, because bass are not 100% sight feeders. Got to remember that. They can sense any vibration in the water through their lateral line down the side of them. They can sense that vibration. The spinnerbait keys right in on that. You don't have to always use the traditional. You can use the, just a regular shad-looking willow leaf spinnerbait, especially when you're fishing around areas that have some light, maybe around some bridges where you get some street lights, docks that have lights on them. If you're going to be fishing the bank around there, any kind of shad color is primo, because they're really keyed in on the shad. And I would also throw in, any kind of boot tail swim bait on a jig head like that around the lights can absolutely get you wrecked, especially with stripers. Stripers will wreck your swim bait as well. And I have not had a lot of chance. I've only caught a handful of fish on a chatterbait at night, but it's that same deal. It's got that steady vibration. They can key in on it and find it and run it down and get it. The only thing that I don't like as much about the chatterbait is it goes kind of fast. You have to reel it kind of fast to make that thing vibrate and go down through the water column, where the spinnerbait is a little bit slower. I think it's easy for them to key in on it and find it and eat it right there. So those are, well, I didn't mention my little buddy, the Little John MD. I know a handful of guys that absolutely smash them on a shad-colored Little John MD at night, and I've only learned this in the last couple years. I wish I had known that years ago, because I would have loved to thrown this closer around the bank. A lot of those areas where you're catching fish on the top water, especially when the shad are spawning at night. This can catch some of those fish that are not quite up there. Either that shad spawn is almost done, or it's getting ready to start, or some of those fish that just backed off. But a good place to you can crank the bank on any of those places where they spawn at night. So there's my night fishing baits 101 basics. Get you started on night fishing. So go out there, be careful, and have fun, and take a picture of them, please, and send them in.